What is up, YouTubes? We are here on the streets of New Capenna to figure out what is going on and get ready for your pre-release. Streets of New Capenna takes place in the Art Deco Noir metropolis of New Capenna, a city built by angels, but now ruled by 5 demon crime families. In New Capenna, there is no shortage of grit or glamour, but from what we can tell, things are sure to get worse before they get better. With that, let's get you ready for everything you need to know for your pre-release. Here's the itinerary of what I will be covering in the video. And remember, if you want to pre-order any New Capenna stuff, I'm talking sealed boxes, pre-release kits, or those must-have singles, check out Card Kingdom and use my affiliate link just to let them know I sent you. They are my go-to place on the internet for all of my Magic the Gathering needs, and they will always take care of you and all of your New Capenna Halo needs. Now let's get into it. Each family has its own new mechanic, so let's review those first. Starting with Brokers, they are band colors, white, blue, and green, and their new mechanic is shield counters. Shield counters state, if a permanent with a shield counter on it would be destroyed or dealt damage, instead you remove the shield counter and prevent that effect. So your opponent tries to murder your creature, nope, shield counter protects it. Opponent pings your 3/3 for 1 damage, even though it would not destroy it, that also removes the shield counter. Shield counters are very good in most circumstances, and ideally you're looking to trade those counters for an actual card or multiple cards to generate card advantage. If you do that, that's a great way to get ahead. Next, Obscura are Esper colors, white, blue, and black, and their new mechanic is Connive. If a creature connives, you draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, the creature that did the conniving gets a 1/1 counter. Pretty straightforward in how it works, but it will be complicated navigating what to discard and when. Then we have Maestros, Grixis colors, which are blue, black, and red, and their new mechanic is Casualty, and it will show up as Casualty with a number after it, like 2 or 3 or X in the case of Obnixilis. The way it works, when you cast a spell, you may, in addition to paying the mana cost to cast it, also sacrifice a creature. For example, Casualty 2 means you must sack a creature with power 2 or greater, and if you do, you get to copy the spell. This can be super helpful to make use of low-powered creatures or those that have already served their purpose to really add more value in copying that spell. Our next mechanic is Blitz, which we find with the Riveteers, who are black, red, and green. Blitz says when casting a creature for its Blitz cost, add several things to the creature. It gains haste, and a line that says when this creature dies, draw a card, and the minor drawback of it must be sacrificed at the beginning of the next end step. So when you blitz something out, it's for that immediate benefit. Our last mechanic is for Cabaretti, who is Naya, red, green, and white, and they bring my favorite mechanic in the set, Alliance. Alliance is an ability keyword that triggers every time a creature enters the battlefield under your control. The effect is different for each card with Alliance, but it is often a way to build up a ton of value if you can find a way to keep adding creatures to the board. And creating tokens is going to be the perfect way to generate obnoxious amounts of value here, but the point is the more creatures the better. That's it for the mechanics. Now let's get into the archetypes, but first, Streets of New Capenna pre-release kits will come with 1 seeded booster pack, so you get 5 regular and then 1 that only has cards that match the colors of the family on the kit. So if your LGS lets you choose, you'll want to know beforehand which family you'd prefer. You may also want to call your LGS ahead of time and see if you can reserve your kit now. I think there's a clear top 2 families to shoot for, but let's see if you agree at the end of the review. Also, while the set revolves around 3 color families, there's also 5 2-color sub-archetypes, or at least what I call sub-archetypes. So we still have 10 in total to know, and I'll weave between the 2 and 3 color archetypes. That way you can see how they play together and may also help you in choosing which family pre-release kit you want. If this helps, think of the 3 color pairings as focused on a mechanic and the 2 color pairings as focused on a mission. Let's get into it, starting with Brokers, and they are all about protection and controlling what is happening. Falco is our leader. Our charm is okay, but Broker's Ascendancy is busted for limited. We want counters on things. We want to use those counters to do work, either by protecting ourselves with shield counters or helping creatures be big and strong like green always enjoys. In the early game, we're looking for cards like Disciplined Duelist because it's an annoying card to deal with, having double strike and a shield counter. It's a potent combination. Backstreet Bruiser's a great way to gum up the ground, but can start attacking in once we get a couple counters on creatures. Broker's Veteran is one of those sneaky cards that is annoying to block or attack into, and can really provide some value once it puts a shield counter on something else. Then Rigo is card draw, so enough said there. Now in the mid-game, Swooping Protector is awesome. With Flash, it comes in essentially as a cheeky removal spell that can trade its shield counter away for hopefully one of our opponent's creatures. Lagrella is great, although confusing, because basically you can exile one creature controlled by each player, which at a pre-release means you and your opponent. Then when she dies, they both come back, but yours also comes back with 2 additional 1/1 counters. There's just a ton of potential value from this card, so I'd definitely play it if you open it. And Cleanup Crew is a nice top-end play for us that on ETB can solve a big problem for us, as well as create a big problem for our opponent. Then exotic pets are some nice evasive fishies that can help copy one of those shield or 1/1 counters the rest of our creatures are carrying to make them a little more annoying. And these fishies take us to our first 2-color sub-archetype, which is blue-white evasion. Pretty standard, they like flying and unblockable fish. Metropolis Angel is amazing because card draw is always super strong. Celestial Regulator is another solid flyer that can lock something down for a couple turns. And finally, Scheming Fence is another blue-white gold card and helps shut down one of our opponent's things, but is also a citizen, which we will see more of in green-white, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. To wrap up our run-through of brokers, for interaction we have some options. There's counterspells, removal like Broken Wings to clear the air, Killshot is a great defensive removal spell, and we do have other pacifism effects like Hold for Ransom. Now Cabaretti is who we'll cover next, led by Jetmir, because there's a lot of overlap with the green and white citizen creatures. So let's start with another sub-archetype review of green-white citizen cards. Darling of the Masses brings a decent tribal effect, but the ability to create a token every time we attack makes her one of the best creatures for us at uncommon. Ceremonial Groundbreaker makes every citizen creature token a problem, and Civil Servant is an ideal 2-drop that can be a 3/3 with lifelink when it attacks. And Parkite's Pegasus is just a great card for Jetmir's game plan, which is go wide for our alliance mechanic. Looking at Jetmir, he provides us a ton of value the wider our board gets, although his Charm and Ascendancy cards are less than exciting, but don't let that distract you from all the things we do have to be excited about. Gala Greeters are amazing because they should be easy to grow consistently and just bring a lot of value in as a 2-drop. Venom Connoisseur is awesome, getting Death Touch constantly, but also giving it to our whole team, which can be really annoying for our opponent to deal with. And Jewel Thief, a 3/3 for 3 with Trample and Vigilance, and gets us a treasure. This card is easily one of the best commons in the set, and you should play every copy of it you open. And Witty Roastmaster, I just love cards like this, especially if you can get multiple into play. It could be a perfect way to ping in for extra points of damage and just close out a game. Now in the mid-game, if you're wondering who is second in line in this crime family, it's Ginny Fey, obviously, who lets us exchange any token, whether it be a 1/1 citizen or a treasure token, into a bigger threat. Now remember, that includes treasure tokens, so there's a ton of potential for us here, depending on what other synergy pieces or treasure makers we may open. Rumor Gatherer is a top-tier white card for us, helping smooth out draws and ideally drawing us more cards. Celebrity Fencer is a card I like so long as you're not super far behind, because if you can start putting counters on her, she will be a huge problem for our opponent. And Rocco is someone who scales to any point in the game, but never cast this as just a 3-drop. Always get that additional creature in play and make sure you're playing some 1 and 2 drops to give yourself some lower mana options. Cabaretti is fairly straightforward, lots of creatures that want to see more creatures ETB. This deck, as much as any, will require you to have a low curve to be good. Without that low curve, you're going to struggle to get your alliance members down and also be able to activate them while responding to what your opponent is doing. So yeah, mix in some removal, some combat tricks with a ton of 2 and 3 drop creatures, and you should be in a decent spot with one of New Capenna's most aggro families. The other family that would compete for most aggro is the Riveteers, led by Zayatora. But first, let's check out the red-green treasure archetype because it fits perfectly between these two families. Basically, there are cards that create treasures, like Black Market Tycoon, and then we have payoffs for them like Jetmir's Fixers, who loves using treasures to pump itself up, or we can cheat in Security Rocks. A 5/4 for just what ends up being 2 mana is obnoxious. And then Stimulus Package helps us turn treasures into citizens, which is probably the best way to trigger Alliance at instant speed. Who says you can't buy friends? Seriously though, Stimulus Package is an amazing combo card and value engine in this set. Now back to Zayatora and his blitzing big beaters, along with some self-sacrifice in red, black, and green. We like big scary things, and if we have some stuff that's not so big and scary, we'll find another use for it. In the early game, cards like Crew Captain is some hasty goodness. Corrupt Court Official is a solid value 2-drop that we can later sacrifice for more value. And Riveteer's Requisitioner has Blitz, and when it dies, we get a treasure token as well. How generous. Then Nightclubber is a hilariously named card that is perfect for taking out all those pesky tokens and 1 toughness creatures our opponents may have. This card can be a serious blowout, so definitely keep it in mind if you wind up in this archetype. Then in the mid-game, our gold cards are quite potent. Mr. Orfeo makes sure something of ours is a problem in combat.
Masked Bandits is our cycle of this type of card, which helps every family fix its mana, and eventually is a creature you can cast later on. Ours is a 5/5 Vigilant Menace creature, which seems pretty good. Then Pugnacious Pugilist is nice. If you need a way to create tokens, it can draw on those blocks so you can blow them out with a combat trick, and Freelance Muscle is just a house of a card to deal with. You'll basically always have the biggest creature in combat with this thing, and if you can give it trample, you're in business. Now, with pre-releases being sealed and somewhat slower, as we all get introduced to a new format, having big bodies is great at helping us strangle our opponent's hopes of winning. Just to be clear, Strangle is one of the best commons in the set as well. So when in doubt, Jund them out, and hopefully the treasure creation helps you also be able to play all the fun cards in your deck. Okay, enough of Zaitor's crew. Let's check the other subtype he plays so well with, which is Black-Red Self-Sacrifice. Our gold cards here, Body Dropper is a creature that will keep getting bigger. Fatal Grudge can help us sack things we want to, and hopefully our opponent to sack things they don't want to. And then Forge Boss to ping down our opponent each turn. What I find though is we have plenty of ways to sacrifice creatures. The challenge is having creatures we are okay sacrificing. Cool thing about Corpse Explosion is it exiles a card from a graveyard, which I think is another hilarious card in the set, and a pretty effective board wipe to help us remove the smaller creatures and help our bigger things get in for some serious damage. The other family that enjoys some self-sacrifice is the Maestros, with their casualty and spell copying ways. Led by Xander, this archetype is about maximizing value, and Xander is certainly a bomb in any format. His Ascendancy, not that exciting. His Charm is better though. Moving on to the players in his organization, we have Corpse Appraiser. It's a pretty solid 3/3 that can also exile a problem card from a graveyard, and when it does, we get to search the top 3 to put a new exciting card in our hand. Unlucky Witness is great in this or any deck where you potentially need to sacrifice creatures. Maestro's Initiate is solid, being able to trigger any casualty effect and help us draw cards in the late game. Then Rogue's Gallery is one of the best uncommons in the set, hopefully getting you 2, if not 3 creatures back in your hand. The one thing I don't like about the 12 casualty spells in this set is only 2 are instants. I like to have a little chat with wizards about it and ask them, when am I finally going to get a preview card, Anyway, Maestro's Diabolist creates us devil tokens we can then sacrifice to casualty as well, and that 1 damage they deal can be a really nice way to deal with those shield counters. Dig Up the Body is another instant casualty spell, and one of my favorites because it helps us get those bomby creatures back. And then Join the Maestros is a pretty solid common. It can turn that useless 2-power thing into a 4/3, while also helping us trigger sacrifice effects. And then I gotta call out Errant Street Artist, because she can copy all of our casualty copies, which can prove to be some pretty insane value. Does take some setup because you need her and the sacrifice and the casualty spell, but that's all worth the risk in my opinion. That's the Maestros. They look to maximize value in everything they're doing, from their creatures to their answers for their opponents, and eventually work out a way to get ahead. And if you fall behind against them, it may be impossible to claw your way back. Now this takes us to our last 2-color sub-archetype, and that fits between the Maestros and Obscura. It's Blue-Black Self-Mill. Their mission is to see 5 or more mana values in the graveyard. Aven Heartstabber, Snooping Newsy, Syndicate Infiltrator, Tainted Indulgence. All of these go from good to great once we get those 5 mana values in our graveyard. And sacrificing with Casualty as well as Conniving and Obscura help us get there. With that, let's check out the last family, the Obscura, who are conniving as all get out and led by Rafine. Connive is something that I view as quite helpful to either hit our land drops or make sure we don't flood out. So I think right away, it's a top tier option in Limited, simply because of the consistency it can bring to any deck. Some great lower curve plays are Fairy Vandal, which is a fantastic uncommon for us and one we should be able to consistently pump up. Rafine's Informant, early Conniving's nice to make sure we hit those land drops, and Hypnotic Grifter is just an awesome mana sink for us. Lastly, Inspiring Overseer, easily one of the best commons in the set, and if you are in white, you better play every copy you open of this card. Some more cards to be aware of. Psychic Pickpocket is nice value helping you connive and bounce a non-land permanent. Majestic Metamorphosis is awesome, and a card you should play multiple copies of if you got them. Other synergies for the late game once we got cards in our graveyard. Sewer Crocodile, nice late game finisher being unblockable. And Graveyard Shift, once it gains Flash, can lead to some nice blowouts, flashing us in a nice blocker or cheating in some awesome creature to help us finish off our opponent. Remember, Obscura also shares that overlap with the blue-white evasion cards. Having access to black as well means we should have plenty of interaction or ways to figure out whatever our opponent's doing. That's the gist, that's Obscura, and that's the end of our archetype reviews. But you're probably wondering, which archetype should you pick for your pre-release kit? Well, for me, my top choice would be Riveteers, because they have the big creatures, the red-green treasures line can help us play every bomb we open up in our packs, and treasures and mana fixing like that usually help me build the most fun deck possible. But if Riveteers isn't available, I'd be equally happy with Obscura, because Connive bringing that consistency I think is huge, and flyers are always good, especially the ones in this set. I think both these families are the top tier choices. I wouldn't be unhappy with any though. It's pre-release. We're just there to have fun. But let me know in the comments which kit you're wanting the most, and add in hashtag MTG Capenna, because I'm curious if that helps the video be found by everyone else looking for help. Be much appreciated. Thanks, friends. Any other questions or curiosities, let me know in the comments too. Let's keep moving along with some of the artifacts you don't want to overlook, starting with Arc Spitter. It's amazing in some matchups, especially those that have shield counters going around, because it can help remove those before combat damage, or it just makes your Menace or Death Touch or First Strike creatures that much more of a problem. I'm not saying throw it in your main board, but definitely keep it in mind if you need to sideboard it in later in a match. Now, Quick Draw Dagger should be viewed as a combat trick that also happens to stick around as an equipment. When it ETBs, given that First Strike should help us take care of something in combat, and then just being able to equip for one is always solid and limited. And then if you're playing a lot of gold cards like 7+, I'd say definitely play Scuttling Butler, because a 4/1 with Double Strike is just OP, and there's not many blockers that can handle this thing on their own. Lastly, don't forget about how good Suspicious Bookcase can be in games where you need to stabilize early and or have ways to get in for damage. This card can really do some work.
Now, what about splashing? I'd give Streets of New Capenna a B+. In the red-green archetype, it's great. The rest, it's just good. We have the family fetch lands, we have the dual color draw lands, we have the exile mana fixers, the rare tricolor lands, and finally a couple artifacts that help create a treasure one time. So you should be able to find something to make a splash work if you need it, but that should cover us on the splashing help. Again, if you're in the red and green archetype, ton of cards, you can't miss them. Moving towards our final sections, starting with deck building tips. Get your packs open and organized ASAP. Start with the idea of building a 2-color deck first. Be decisive about what 2 colors you're going to play so you can get something decent together, and then with any remaining time you can review the cards that you cut to make sure you didn't overlook something, and then don't be afraid to change things up. In Limited, you can do whatever you want. So if you wish you'd included a card in your main deck, just swap it in for your next games. And when you're getting your packs open and organized, try to just ignore everyone celebrating their amazing promos and mythics while you look down at duplicate awful rares and a promo that's so bad you won't even take it out of the wrapper. Don't worry, feel your pain on that one. You just want to stay focused on finding those 2 strongest colors first, and then look to splash for those missing bombs or interaction your deck needs. Your early play should all or just about all come from your primary 2 colors. I would not worry about main decking artifact or enchantment removal, but I would main deck something like Broken Wings, because just how prevalent flying is in the set. The complicated part about building your deck with this set is how painful it is to read through all the cards because there's so much text, but stick to the fundamentals and you'll be alright. Now on to the final section, gameplay tips. First, don't be afraid to mulligan. I know it's frustrating, but if you're playing 3 colors especially and you only have 1 color mana in your hand, don't be greedy and hope for multiple perfect draws just so you can play the game. Take the mulligan. Also, there's a lot of interaction in this set, over 40 instants, so if mana is up, be wary. But I'll also tell you, removal must be used wisely, ideally on those high synergy or bomb targets. I know it's tough, but try and let your big creatures do their work and bring their value. There's a lot of game-ending bombs out there, so if you use your removal lazily and then they drop something huge that you can't answer again, that's going to feel bad. And then last, be confident. Always be confident. I don't care how new you are or how experienced your opponent is, anyone can win any game of Magic. It may take a little luck, but if you doubt you'll win before you even shuffle up, then I'm just going to tell you, you're giving your opponent way too much credit. Trust your gut and do what's the best for your situation. Okay, last thing, be sure to come back and let me know how your pre-release went. I love hearing how it went for you, the sweet polls you wound up with, or whatever you want to share. 4 comments, that's all I need from everyone. But alright friends, that's going to do it for me. You know what to do if you want to support the channel. Card Kingdom has you covered for all your MTG needs. Pre-release kits, sealed product singles, they got it all. And I have a Patreon. If these are helping you enjoy your pre-releases more, you can help me by supporting me directly. And a huge thank you to my patrons. Y'all are the absolute best. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Best of luck at your pre-release, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Peace.